November. First day of November, which the Saxons call the month of blood, feast of all saints. We took down the hazel branches from the doors and windows and blessed God for keeping us free of witches for another year. Would that it were so easy to keep the abominable Robert away. He is coming for Christmas. The first memory I have of this brother is his drowning ants by pissing on the ant hill. He has plagued me ever since. Second day of November, Feast of All Souls. I joined the village children today as they went from cottage to cottage begging for soul cakes. Our cook makes the largest cakes, but Perkins' granny makes the best. Ordinarily, I do not mind Perkins' granny's muddle-mindedness, for she is the most roomy-hearted person I know. But sometimes she forgets to make her cakes, and we are all disappointed. One year, she made cakes at Michaelmas and was full angry that no one came begging for them. Another All Souls Day, as we stood at her window singing, "Soul, a soul cake, please, good mistress, a soul cake," she wished us a holy Christmas and sang back, "Here we come, a-wassailing among the boughs so green." This year, she got the day right, and I snuck extra cakes into my chamber for tomorrow. I have already eaten them. Third day of November, Feast of St. Rumwald, who, at 3 days old, said, "I am a Christian," and died. The beast my father roared especially ugly roars today. I never seem to please him, although it is true I never try. When I was a child, I ofttimes thought I was a foundling, or, even better, the beloved daughter of our good King Edward Longshanks, left here with this beast and his wife for fostering. Mayhap it is true, and now that I near 14, my real father will call me home. And I will live in a castle with turkey rugs on the floor and glass in the windows, and dress my hair with a comb of golden ivory. No, even better, my real father is a woodsman from the West who lives in a treehouse made of sticks and branches. He calls me home, and we live with the beasts of the forest and dance in the moonlight in the wet grass, and no one calls us in to go to bed or finish our sewing, which Morwenna is doing now, the devil taker. Fourth day of November, Feast of St. Burston, who once when praying for the dead heard them answer, "Amen." Brought my popinjay to dinner. He fell off my shoulder into the boiled merling, and I had to take him to the kitchen to wash the sauce off his feathers and let him dry himself by the fire. My father roared because there were a few feathers in the fish. He has eaten worse. As I passed his chair after dinner, the beast hit me hard enough to crack my rump. Afterwards, my Uncle George winked at me and made all the uproar worth it. My heart almost stopped. Fifth day of November, Feast of St. Zachary and Elizabeth, parents of John the Baptist, although they were much too old. Father Hugh came for dinner after Mass. He is infested with boils and blotches and sought the aid of my lady mother. To test my skills in doctoring, she asked what I would advise. I thought the best remedy was to throw himself in the river, but aloud I advised an ointment made of oil of bay and a bath once in a while. Sixth day of November, Feast of St. Illtyd, who once sailed to Brittany with corn ships to relieve a famine. Went to the high meadow to meet Ailess as we planned. I waited all day, but she never came. Morwenna caught me sneaking back after supper, and I have been made to do extra sewing. My belly is croaking with hunger, and I have 7 ticks. Seventh day of November, Feast of St. Willibrord, archbishop who killed sacred cows, destroyed idols, and still lived to be 81. Ailess did not come to the meadow yesterday because she was with my Uncle George. I have made myself another draught of wormwood and mint. Eighth day of November, Feast of the Crowned Martyrs, who were either 4 Roman soldiers or 5 Persian snow masons. I put a toad in George's bed. I don't know why. I cried at dinner and left the table before the almond cream. I don't know why. I looked for Perkin to pinch him, but he was gone with the goats. I cannot be a monk, nor a crusader, nor a tumbler. I must stay here and hem sheets until I die. My humors are greatly out of balance. I prescribed for myself wormwood and spiced wine and some of the custard left from supper, and I will let all of the dogs sleep in my bed. Ninth day of November, Feast of St. Theodore the Wonder Worker. It appears a storm is coming. Father Hughes says storms are the work of the devil. Does that mean if the devil is busy with some other mischief, the weather is good? Or if the devil is occupied bringing a storm to Stonebridge, there is no sickness or evil or bad weather elsewhere in the world? Is the devil, then, being in charge of the weather, more powerful than God? 10th day of November, Feast of St. Ad Mech Brick, Bishop and Physician of Ireland, who could travel through the air. Father Hugh is ringing the bells to drive the storm away, but the devil is winning this time. 11th day of November, Martinmas, feast of St. Martin of Tours, who gave his cloak to a beggar who was Christ in disguise. The wind ripped the roofs off several of the cottages, and the unlucky villagers crowded into our hall tonight. Trees fell, and the lowlands were flooded with a foot of water as our normally dilly-dally river leapt its banks and ran through the fields looking for things to devour. Perkins said babies in their cradles were washed out of the cottages and sailed away to lands unknown like Moses in the Bible. This morning, we can see the river tumbling with dead rats, turnip tots, and cooking pots. 12th day of November, Feast of St. Cadwallader, the Battle Shunner. Why, I wonder, did God make faces with the nose over the mouth instead of the other way? Why do noses have two openings and mouths only one? And why do we need to blow our noses but never our ears or our eyes? I thought to ask More one of these questions, but when she doesn't have answers, she just bellows at me and sends me to do embroidery, so I dare not risk it. It rains today, so I'm sitting in my chamber listening to the music of my birds and wondering. 13th day of November, Feast of St. Abbo of Fleury, killed in a fight between serving men and monks. My father is confined to his bed with severe alehead. I ground some peony root to soothe his pain, but he drank the powder in more ale, so I don't know how much good it will do. I wonder why every occasion for mourning or celebrating seems to call for ale. Birth ales, church ales, bride ales, funeral ales, harvest ales. Every week, our hall is filled with guests who are marking some occasion with ale on one day and violently ridding themselves of it on the next. Birds and animals and children, being smarter, never get drunk and never have alehead or putrid stomach. 14th day of November, Feast of St. Diffrig, the bishop who crowned Arthur king of Britain. All is ashes. I was in the high meadow today with Alice, who says she loves my Uncle George and he loves her, and they wish to wed. I must doubt that her father, the Baron, will let her be given to a younger son with no land and no title. But she says she always gets her way, so I am greatly afeard. Will they, my two most favorite in the world, abandon me for each other? I am sore stricken. I have heard that if lovers meet a pig while walking, it is certain to doom their love. If only I could arrange for them to meet a pig, or, even better, a weasel. Where do I get a weasel? And how do I get them all three together? I think to need more wormwood tonight. 15th day of November, Feast of St. Malo, a bishop who sang psalms to his horse. A gray and drizzly day. I have done extra hours of embroidery, for it gave me time to think undisturbed about Alice and George. I thought to make a spell to curse them, but I do not know where to get dragon dung. Mayhap I should pray instead, but I am not very good at asking nicely for things, even from God. 16th day of November, Feast of St. Margaret of Scotland, Queen and Needleworker. They are cleaning out the privy today. The stench drove me from the house into the muddy fields, but when they started to spread the manure on the fields, I went back into the house. One thing I will never do is run away and be a privy cleaner. 17th day of November, Feast of St. Hilda, Abbess of Whitby, said to be a relative of my mother. They found the remains of several spindles, many skeins of wool, and an unfinished tapestry in the muck from the privy. Why is everyone so certain they are mine? 18th day of November, Feast of St. Mawes, who can cure headaches, worms, and snakebite. I have developed a rash on my body where the rough cloth rubs on my skin. I wanted to take a bath, thinking that the dirt on my skin made the rash worse. But the bathing tub has been turned upside down and is being used as an extra table in the kitchen, and I cannot have it until spring, so I just spread goose grease on my rash. The dogs are following me everywhere. 19th day of November, Feast of St. Ermenberga, succeeded as abbess by her daughter Mildred. Heard Mass 3 times today. My father must want something of God. A rich son-in-law, no doubt, although there have been no further prune-faced suitors. No more news of George and Alice, the uncle thief. Mayhap their love is but a dream of Alice's. George, for certain, has said nothing, albeit he has new dark circles about his eyes and no winks for me. 20th day of November, Feast of St. Edmund the King. It is a strange and wonderful story about King Edmund. He was hacked to pieces by invading Vikings, and his head rolled under a thorn bush where it lay, calling, "Help, help," until his friends could find it and carry it home. I have added to the picture on my wall Edmund's head hiding in the bush, calling, "Help, help." His teeth are yellow because I have no white paint. But maybe they truly were yellow. Most people's are. 21st day of November, Feast of St. Gelasius, Pope, who insisted bishops give 1/4 of their wealth to the poor. Morwenna says today is the day Noah entered the ark. I asked her how did she know? Was she there? She hates when I make jests about how old she is, so she just sniffed. 22nd day of November, Feast of St. Cecilia, who refused to sacrifice to pagan gods and was suffocated in her bathing room. We were visited by a procession of musicians today, celebrating the Feast of Cecilia, their special saint. We had music at dinner, with lutes and gitterns and pipes and drums. My favorite song was about Arthur and Guinevere. It was beautifully tragic. I have no talent to be a musician, but I now have it in my mind to be a songmaker. One of the musicians showed me a jest to do with lute strings. He cut one and sprinkled the pieces on a bench near the fire. As they grew hot, they moved and twisted like worms or maggots. One of the dogs was fooled and started barking and scratching at the bench. Then she ate the strings. No one else noticed. A poor jest. 23rd day of November, Feast of St. Clement, thrown into the sea with an anchor around his neck. My mother, Morwenna, and I are spending some days crushing, grinding, boiling, steeping, and straining herbs. The taste and smell of agrimony, betony, feverfew, and dill are in my clothes, my mouth, my hair, my ears. While we worked, my mother told the story of how she first met my father. She said, I was the ward of the Baron Fulk Longsword, my father having died some years before, and was living at the time with his family in their castle near York. One day appeared a young knight of no great fortune or renown, with great strong arms and shoulders, and eyes like a raven's. He claimed the baron had cheated his father out of a plot of woodland, and he, the knight, wanted it back. When the baron laughed and refused, the knight challenged him to a contest on the field of honor. The baron bade his men throw the young knight out, and we all sat down to supper. I remember we ate minnows and eels baked with white apples. But all night we could hear the knight banging on the gatehouse door with the hilt of his sword, calling out his grievances. It began to rain and then to snow, but day after day the knight stayed there, pounding on the door and shouting. I was most impressed with his strength and his stubbornness, and so too was the baron, it seems, for he would not let his knights run the young man through with their swords, but instead brought him in and listened to him, gave him the woodland, and sat him at his side for dinner. Then the young knight's eyes found me, and I knew that strength and stubbornness would win me as they had the baron, whether I would or no. And so I went right upstairs and packed my clothes. In 3 days, we were wed and off to Stonebridge. We were both 15. That was the end of her story. I cannot imagine my father a young knight, but I certainly can see him pounding on the gatehouse door all night. I told my mother then some of my wonderings and about my wanting to be a songmaker. She pulled one of my plates and said, Songmaker, Birdy, don't stretch your legs longer than your stockings or your toes will stick out. Then she added, You are so much already, little bird. Why not cease your fearful pounding against the bars of your cage and be content? I do not know exactly what that means, but it troubles me. 24th day of November, Feast of St. Minver, who threw her comb at the devil. Today I asked Morwenna about spells. What, I asked, is a spell against warts? Against sickness in sheep? I asked, feigning innocence, what would one use for a spell to come between lovers if one has no dragon dung? Facing the lovers by moonlight, she said, throw dirt from a new-made grave and say, Love abate, disintegrate, turn love to hate. And what are you up to now, little bird? That sounds too fearsome to me. I must find a spell that does not involve graves. 25th day of November, Feast of St. Catherine, a virgin of Alexandria whose body was broken on a spiked wheel. Catherine, who was my own namesake, was, I know, a princess who refused to marry a pagan emperor. But I do not understand the part about her dying on a spiked wheel. What is a spiked wheel? Where are the spikes? What is it for besides martyring virgins? How was she fastened on? Was it lying on the ground or upright? Why didn't they just put an arrow through her? Would I choose to die rather than be forced to marry? I hope to avoid the issue, for I do not think I have it in me to be a saint. Inspired by the musicians, I made a St. Catherine song. It begins, Catherine, bless your namesake today. If I ever meet a pagan king, to you I'll pray. Hi diddly, hey diddly, sing ho. For save yourself you didn't know how, but being a saint mayhap could do better now. Hi diddly, hey diddly, sing ho. This is as far as I have gotten. The hi diddlies are my favorite part. 26th day of November, Feast of St. Marcellus, a prince seized by heretics and hurled to his death from a high rock. I am confined to my chamber with my embroidery needle. My mother's doing. How it came about is this. Yesterday being my saint's day and my birthday, there was a feast. We sat down to dinner at an hour before noon and stayed at table until after dark. The hall was crowded with guests, musicians, and servers, and was, for once, overwarm. We ate glazed eggs, apple tarts, whole pigeons and snipes, peacock in raisin sauce, red and white jellies, pig stomach stuffed with eggs and spices, and potted beef with nutmeg. I relished it all but the birds, which I never eat. During the feast, the cook and the kitchen boys paraded around the hall with a giant pastry they had made to honor me of St. Catherine dying on her wheel, with marzipan spikes and spun sugar soldiers. The wheel was upright. The eating went on forever. I was seated next to my father, so I had no one to talk with. George was not there, so I had no one to look at. Finally, I conceived a small amusement to pass the time. I took a string from the lute that once was mine but now belongs to the cook, cut it into pieces as the traveling musician had showed me, and sprinkled them on a dish of creamed herring as it passed by. The heat of the dish made the pieces of string writhe and wiggle. The Lady Margaret, seated 3 places beyond me, dipped her hand ladylike into the dish and lifted a piece of fish to her mouth. Screeching like a barn owl, she jumped up and set about wiping her hand on her gown, the tablecloth, my father, whatever she could reach. The cook was summoned. I thought I was safe, and he would be blamed, but somehow it was sorted out, and my saint's day ended with the cook standing on the table, shaking his spoon at me and swearing in Saxon. I was sent from the table to prepare a potion of cinnamon and milk for the daughter of the Lord Morton Manor, who fainted in the potted meat. What a ninny. Now I am imprisoned. Deuce, it was meant as a jest. 27th day of November. Feast of St. Fergus, an Irish bishop, who condemned irregular marriages, sorcerers, and priests who wear their hair long. I am still confined to my chamber, with the army of girls here for my Saint's Day celebrations. Alice, the uncle thief, is with us, and I do not know how to act toward her. I have chosen for now slightly cold but well behaved. Ayla says her father will not speak to her of marriage to my uncle, and George has not said one word to her this entire visit. For one who claims to be perishing of love, she looks healthy enough. Perkins' granny says to put yarrow up their noses and spit, and Alice and George will love no more. Corpus bones, I could more easily get dirt from 100 graves than stuff yarrow up George's nose. 28th day of November, Feast of St. Jethwara, who wore cheeses on her chest and was beheaded by her stepbrother. As Alice and I passed George on the way into supper, I threw a fistful of dirt at each of them, spattering us all. It's not really from a grave, but from the edge of the churchyard, yet it must suffice, for I am not venturing deep into any graveyard with this jealous evil in my heart. George and Alice looked dusty, puzzled, and sore vexed. I said the turn love to hate chant under my breath, so no one could hear me, for sure else I would be punished, cast away, locked up, or laughed at, no one of which I relish. I do not know how long it will take the spell to work. By supper's end, they did not yet look like people whose love had turned to hate. 29th day of November, Feast of Saints Paramon and others, 375 martyrs killed in a single day. After supper yestereve, George accompanied the Baron's party back to Finbury Castle. George is now home again, ill-tempered and drunk. Corpus bones, all that men seem to know of doctoring is prescribing ale. When will the curse work? 30th day of November, Feast of St. Andrew, fisherman, apostle, and martyr, missionary to Greece, Turkey, and Poland. 3 weeks and 3 days before Christmas comes in. I had it in my mind to make a Christmas song, but I can think of nothing to say except, when will the curse work?